Hey, how's it going everyone? This is Wylam here. In today's Fuji Friday, I want to talk about the Fuji X Summit that happened last Friday. I was going to make a video about it over the weekend, but as I was actually going over making that video, I'd rather talk about camera design first, so I made a video about that first. So in this video, I'm going to go over some of the items that I want to talk about from the Fuji X Summit. There was actually a lot of information from there, but it was kind of general, so I'm just going to give you my general overall thoughts about it. The first item that I want to cover is their f1.0 lens. It used to be a 33mm or somewhere around a 50mm equivalent in full frame terms. So making it that focal range does make a lot of sense because people do like all around lenses, and having it at f1.0 would make it kind of unique. Unfortunately, it was too heavy and too large for Fujifilms to like, and they've decided to make it into a 50mm or 75mm full frame equivalent, which pretty much puts it in the sweet spot of portrait photography, which is still a very strong field. I know a lot of people that like photography go into portraiture because you can almost always find work, especially if you're willing to pound the pavement a little bit or to make some calls. It's just a very good focal length to have very shallow depth of field and to have really nice rich bokeh. So having a f1.0 lens at the 50mm range for crop sensors make a whole lot of sense. The estimates on the price of this lens that it's going to come out is probably going to be somewhere between $2,000 to $3,000. I think the only people that are really going to buy that in demand are going to be really high-end portrait photographers. So personally, I think this is a good move for Fujifilms to move in that direction, but I've never really had too much of an interest in this lens. For me, the interest on this lens is kind of academic. I'm kind of curious to see how well the autofocus is going to work, especially in situations where there's a lot of things moving. Can the focusing system still keep up even when it's opened up all the way? If it does, then that will be truly a unique lens, because a lot of lenses that are this fast are all manual focus. To have one that's actually autofocus and it's able to track very quickly, that will make it a super lens and something that I think a lot of portrait photographers would definitely want. The next item that I want to talk about is firmware. So they were very general about this. They talked about specific features, but they didn't really give us any information about, when the firmware is going to occur, whether or not all of these features is going to be bundled into one firmware, or are we going to actually get multiple firmware updates in which, we're going to get iterations of all these features. But the ones that they did cover is HDR, which most of us know, so that's high dynamic range. You take multiple exposures and then it combines together to give you a really high dynamic range shot. A lot of people like these, a lot of people don't. Whether or not you're a traditionalist or you like some of the HDR shots, that's completely up to you, but it is very useful to actually have this. Getting into a high dynamic range situation is very common, so having this with you, although you do kind of need a tripod in order to use this, can be very useful for you. The next one to talk about is focus bracketing, which basically the camera takes pictures at different focus distances and then you can combine it together in post to make one very sharp image overall. This is something that's super interesting and it's really great for product photography, but I think for the most part this is a niche feature mode, but when you actually need it, you will like having this. But it is fun to play around with when it actually comes into firmware, and I'll definitely try to make a video about that. The last one to talk about is multiple exposures. I actually just made a video about that. I called it double exposure because you can only take 2 pictures currently on the camera system, but they're going to up it from 2 to 9, so you can actually take 9 pictures and it'll merge it into one. I still have the same gripe. I wish there was a raw version of that photo, but when you take these multiple pictures, you definitely wish there was a little bit more room for you to edit during post. Now, these are some really great features that are going to be coming for the Fujifilm system. The only thing that I do want to say is that I wish they actually chose one video feature out of the 3 that they actually talked about, because all of these are photography things, and I know that a large percentage of the Fujifilm community is about photography, but if you really want to grow that video market, it really would have been nice to have one of the main features be video focus, just to show that video continues to be important to Fujifilms, because I know in that list there were a couple of video features, and it just would have been nice to have one of those crop up as one of the top 3. I personally have no problems with having the bulk of the features to be photocentric, but throw the video guys a bone and make sure that we're getting our firmware updates as well, and we definitely do want to have enhanced features for our Fujifilm cameras. So the last thing to talk about, and it wasn't really very long in the presentation, but they did say that for gimbals and for drones, the Fujifilm camera systems will support them. So there is going to be some communication with some third-party brands. They didn't really go into much detail, so we don't really know which brands they're going to be working with. Hopefully one of them is DJI, because they're really big into gimbals and drones at the same time. So that's kind of two birds with one stone, but we really don't know. But it really would be nice to have a lot of support for gimbals, because a lot of the camera bodies like the X-T3 or the X-T30 really could use gimbal support. I personally think the X-T30 really does need tethering support for gimbal systems right now. That definitely makes a lightweight setup that I personally would like to use. So hopefully that support will be coming in a firmware update really soon, and hopefully they're going to be supporting multiple gimbals and multiple drones. A lot of drones that can carry a mirrorless camera or a DSLR, they tend to be on the high end, which means they're really expensive. So we're going to see what kind of support that they're going to give to drones. It is kind of the wild west when it comes to drones and cameras and all of the drone laws that come with it. So we'll see where that goes. There definitely was a lot of content from the Fujifilm Summit. The timeline was a little bit weird, but overall I still liked it. I like all the information that they gave us. It's just that I wish they were a little bit more detailed, but I guess at the point that they're at, they couldn't really give us any targeted dates. But overall, I still really enjoyed it, and I hope there's more to come. That's really all I had to cover this week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next video.